Expansions of Illinois' migrant sanctuary policies could soon be law, as you've also got the use of force case that was brought against the Department of Homeland Security over immigration enforcement proceeding, and Chicago Teachers Union has to offer up their audits to a congressional committee by Monday. How all this plays out, we'll keep track of it at thecentersquare.com. I'm Greg Bishop, editor of Illinois at the Center Square. This is Illinois in Focus Daily. You can wake up with us each and every weekday morning here live as we break things down for you while you're sipping on your coffee and getting on with your day. Go to thecentersquare.com where you can sign up for the newsletter. It's pretty simple. Just enter your email address and you'll be able to get the latest headlines from Illinois. So go do that at thecentersquare.com. But it's not just the Illinois page. You can get national headlines as well. And if you're interested in some state news from other areas, you can find those as well at thecentersquare.com. But here you wake up each morning with us to get a rundown of some of the top things that are happening in the land of Lincoln. So appreciate you being here. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share this with your friends. If you can't watch the live show and join the live chat, well, you can catch the podcasts anywhere you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus. You can also get segments of this show here on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to the Center Square and get the latest. All right, so let's get into it. We've got 3 segments. Hopefully we can make it through all of them. Dealing with some convoluted issues when it comes to legal wranglings over the use of force for immigration enforcement, but we'll do what we can to hammer through that, plus hear about the Chicago Teachers Union and their response to a U.S. House committee demanding financial audits be released for members as per the union's bylaws. They haven't released like 4 or 5 years worth of audits, so we'll hear some about that as well. But up next, we've got to get to the latest of legislation pending the governor's signature, one being the enhancements of the migrant sanctuary policies in the state of Illinois. So stay tuned. That's right here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop with the Center Square.
That particular one? Oh, yes, I was an advocate for the bills, protecting our immigrant communities across the state.
Well, this bill is another example of the problem that exists in the operation of our General Assembly, where we have a bill that does one thing, in fact has broad or even unanimous support, and then is changed in a moment's notice, sometimes with just an hour's notice, and ends up being passed in one chamber and sent to the other chamber that same day, passed again with just an hour's notice. Basically what I view as a violation of the spirit, if not the letter, of the 3 readings rule in our state constitution.
That is State Representative Patrick Windhorst talking about the process by which a bill passed the Illinois General Assembly in fall veto session in October, just in hours changing a bill that was originally focused on POW and MIA Recognition Day, prisoners of war and missing in action. It was a bill that passed unanimously in the House back in April. Never passed the Senate, but the Senate in October, and the last day of scheduled session, decided to gut and replace it and make it a migrant sanctuary enhancement bill. All right, welcome in. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop, and you can wake up with us each and every weekday morning for the latest here as we break things down for you in the land of Lincoln and how you are impacted as a taxpayer. So greatly appreciate you being here each and every weekday. And you can join the live chat where people are pretty conversational about the issues that are impacting the state of Illinois. And be sure to go to thecentersquare.com where you can sign up for the newsletter to get the latest headlines in your inbox, and be sure to share this up with your friends as well as we, again, break things down here in the land of Lincoln to get you what you need to know and on with your day. All right, so let's go ahead and get on into this. If you go to ilga.gov, you will find that you can kind of follow along with legislation. So go to the website, the Illinois General Assembly's website, go to Report and Inquiry, click Legislative Reports. There you will see Bills Pending Governor Action, and you click there. This is a report of all the bills pending governor action. So they've been sent to the governor, and he's got 21 bills on his desk. Now, Governor J.B. Pritzker does have a bill signing ceremony today that's going to take place this morning later on in Chicago, and deals with access to vaccines. So we'll hear a little bit about that. But as you can see, he's got a slew of other bills on his desk. One in particular that we're going to focus on today is the POW MIA Recognition Day. This is House Bill 1312, and it's nothing to do with prisoners of war or missing in action recognition. It was changed in the last day of fall veto session to be a bill enhancing migrant sanctuary policies. We talked about this previously when it passed, and you had House Speaker Chris Welch having a debate about the term illegal immigrant with State Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer. And again, you can go and find that story at thecentersquare.com. And even House Speaker Chris Welch breaking down what exactly this bill does on the House floor. And again, go to thecentersquare.com. You'll be able to see that with that article back in October and November when we
Not
wrote
some
about
people.
that.
All people should feel safe at our hospitals, which will be required to adopt safeguards concerning law enforcement's presence at healthcare facilities, at courthouses, where those ordered to appear in court for jury duty, a traffic ticket, or other businesses will be protected from extrajudicial abuse and detention. And on our college campuses and daycare centers, which will now adopt policies to protect students and children in their care, including protection against disclosing a family's real or perceived immigration status.
So that real or perceived immigration status line appears throughout the bill, impacting a variety of institutions, but it also allows for private right of action to be brought against individuals for assisting federal immigration enforcement officials or violating the Constitution. Governor J.B. Pritzker was asked before the holiday break if he's going to act upon this bill.
You're anxious? You need to know the answer right now? It has not.
Was not sent to his desk then.
Typically, it takes a little time to enroll these bills and have them delivered to me. There were a fair number of them actually from veto session, so no doubt they'll come soon. But we've had, I don't know, 1 or 2 holidays in between, and probably it'll be early December before, or late November probably, before I see some of them. That particular one? Oh, yes, I was an advocate for the bills, protecting our immigrant communities across the state.
So the governor anticipated he's going to sign this bill. And again, go to ilga.gov and look at the history of House Bill 1312, which, as we stated, started as a POW MIA Recognition Day to be observed in honor and remembrance of the men and women who, as POWs, have suffered captivity in foreign countries while in active service to the United States, and as MIAs have been recognized as missing in action in a time of war during period of hostilities. Provides the governor shall, in the governor's annual designation by official proclamation, that's some portion of the third Friday of September, be used for solemn contemplation and plight of members of the United States Armed Forces who have been held prisoner of war and members of the United States Armed Forces who have been missing in action. So again, this was a measure filed by State Representative Maura Hirschauer initially, and then it's got some amendments that were provided. But you could see here, back when it was filed in January of 2025, earlier this year, you had a lot of co-sponsors sign on, right? Representative Dan Ugasti, a Republican, signed on to it. It was a bipartisan effort, and it passed unanimously back in April as the POW MIA recognition bill. But then you go further down, and you see that it got to the Senate eventually. The Senate had its first reading. The Senate had a second reading in May, but it never had a third reading before they adjourned at the end of May. But then come October, it was put on consideration for third reading. That then allowed for Senate President Don Harmon to file an amendment on the final day of scheduled session, October 30th. They heard about it, had a committee hearing about it. All within hours, it was brought up in the Senate and passed. So the Senate amended it with the migrant sanctuary status updates the last day of fall veto session, months after the House had passed a totally unrelated bill. So you can see the trajectory of this. And again, it gets to the House eventually, and the House passes it on October 31st on partisan votes. So you could see all of that passing 73 to 33 to suspend rules, partisan votes. Then they have the amendments that are passed, 75 to 32. And then you ultimately have the measure now on the governor's desk. So that's kind of the trajectory of this bill. For more of what exactly it does, again, here is Republican State Representative Patrick Windhorst, who opposed the measure on the House floor when it was brought up Halloween morning.
Well, the bill does several things. I think it's fair to characterize it as an expansion of the Trust Act in a lot of ways, just in general. But specifically, it creates civil liability for law enforcement officers, both federal and state, that are involved in activity that is found to be in violation of either the Constitution or state law as it relates to immigration enforcement. So in broad scope, it's an immigration related bill that expands the Trust Act.
So Windhorst, in the conversation I had with him yesterday, also delved into an amendment to the measure that does impact qualified immunity.
Yes. Initially, when the bill was filed and working its way through the General Assembly, there was a provision, actually it's called the Illinois Bivens Act, which references a type of federal lawsuit that exists for violation of constitutional rights. But it would say that any person, law enforcement or not, any person who while conducting civil immigration enforcement engages in a violation of either Illinois or the United States Constitution would be subject to civil penalties. Initially, when the bill was being heard in committee, we had a discussion, and the speaker presented the bill and noted that there was not a qualified immunity protection provision. That was later added with Amendment 5. Qualified immunity is a doctrine that says that an individual is not responsible or civilly liable for a violation of constitutional rights unless that constitutional right is, quote, clearly established, unquote, under the law, meaning there needed to be a prior court decision where the court says that this is a violation of constitutional rights. That way people are on notice if they commit that action, they are subject to suit. So by including that, that does provide some protection to law enforcement that did not exist previously. To me, it wasn't enough to support the bill. I believe the bill goes too far, but it did provide protection that law enforcement was looking for.
And again, this is something that the representative says happened all within the span of a handful of hours, and he goes into some in-depth, explanation of, it's the issue of possible civil litigation against law enforcement that could be brought forward, but it's also the liability for several key institutions in the state of Illinois.
Yeah, this bill touches on a wide swath of our society, as you mentioned, dealing with higher ed, hospitals, and childcare specifically. And it's going to require these entities to have policies in place when they are engaging with law enforcement, in some cases beyond the immigration context. For instance, and the policy provisions related to the hospital, hospitals will be required to have a policy in place with how they will handle law enforcement on their premises, regardless of the purpose, immigration or not. In fact, so much so that a hospital is to contact their legal counsel when law enforcement is on the premises, which, as I'm sure you know and others who are hearing this know, law enforcement is often at hospitals completely unrelated to immigration. If they're bringing someone who has been involved in a criminal activity or an accident into the hospital for treatment or evaluation, or if a correctional officer has an inmate at a county jail who needs medical care, or they're brought to a hospital, all these things would trigger those notice requirements that are unrelated to immigration. And it does present penalties to hospitals, child care centers, and our colleges and universities if they do not either have the policies or abide by them, putting them at risk of those penalties that don't exist prior to this bill.
Again, State Representative Patrick Windhorst with that understanding of this particular measure, and he says that it's really not going to help the overall debate about federal immigration enforcement in the state of Illinois if the governor signs this expansion of the state's migrant sanctuary policies.
Well, I view this, as I said, as an expansion of the Trust Act, which I think is having a detrimental impact on immigration enforcement in our state. Of course, that's what the purpose of the law is in a lot of respects, not only the bill we're talking about, but also the Trust Act. And it's going to make for some of the issues we're seeing in the city of Chicago, where law enforcement isn't able to work with federal law enforcement, isn't able to work with local law enforcement in that immigration enforcement measures, where it's creating scenes that are chaotic and it's causing issues for those who are enforcing federal law. And I think this will cause an expansion of that, where our local law enforcement officers aren't able to help the federal officers. One other provision of this bill that it talks about any person designed toward federal immigration enforcement, but our U.S. Constitution, of course, has a supremacy clause, which will mean that this provision, as it relates to federal law enforcement, will quite possibly, in fact, likely be unconstitutional, meaning that the only law enforcement officers who are going to be subject to penalties under this will be our local and state law enforcement, which I feel creates another problem, and we're subjecting our law enforcement to these possible penalties at a time we're having a difficulty in recruiting law enforcement to work in our state. Now, as it relates to how the Trump administration and state government will interact, I think it's just going to be one more barrier for us to see the law enforced as it should be in an orderly way, and will potentially create other arguments to be made that actions taken by the federal government beyond the normal law enforcement actions would be constitutional or allowed by federal law.
Again, that's just a conversation about what kind of impacts this expansion of the state's migrant sanctuary policies will have on the overall debate of federal immigration enforcement in the state of Illinois and in the city of Chicago. But again, as we started off, this particular bill that's now on the governor's desk, and he can sign it at any time, it started off as a POW MIA Recognition Day law, passed unanimously out of the House in April. Had a chance to pass the Senate, never came up during the spring session. And then during veto session months later, on the final day of scheduled veto session, it's gutted and replaced from no longer being about honoring members of the military who are prisoners of war or missing in action. It then focuses on expanding the state's migrant sanctuary policies. Windhorst says this is yet another example of that gut and replace, he says, is a violation of the intent of the three readings rule in the Illinois Constitution for legislation.
Well, this bill is another example of the problem that exists in the operation of our General Assembly, where we have a bill that does one thing, in fact has broad or even unanimous support, and then is changed in a moment's notice, sometimes with just an hour's notice, and ends up being passed in one chamber and sent to the other chamber that same day, passed again with just an hour's notice. Basically, what I view as a violation of the spirit, if not the letter, of the three readings rule in our state constitution. We see this often done with the budget, and unfortunately also large pieces of legislation that have broad impact like this bill does. It's a bad practice. That makes for bad law. And I think this is another example of a bad practice making bad law. This bill should have been one. We had 6 days in the veto session. If this is the legislation the majority wanted, we could have started with day one and worked its way through under what I would consider the appropriate or proper channels passing legislation. But instead, we have legislation that is major, broad, wide-ranging, passing with just a day's notice or sometimes less than that.
Again, just a handful of hours notice when it comes to this particular piece of legislation. So it's not the only one that's on the governor's desk that the title of it doesn't really match the contents of it. Again, if you look at the reports generated at Illinois General Assembly's website, ilga.gov, that was the Prisoners of War Missing in Action Recognition Day, House Bill 1312, that is now a migrant sanctuary enhancement bill. But another one that's got an interesting twist that's now on the governor's desk, it is the Sanitary Food Preparation Bill. All right, so 1950, Senate Bill 1950, Sanitary Food Preparation. So it was filed by state senators, and it amends the Food Preparation Act, provides that if food distribution facilities engaged in the collection, storage, packaging, or distribution of food to consumers, then that facility is subject to all provisions of the Act, and it goes out and spells out more. That measure ultimately amended to be the Medical Aid in Dying Bill, or as others may call it, assisted suicide. So it's the End of Life Options for Terminally Ill Patients Act. This measure came up on the last day of veto session. And again, after gutting and replacing a measure about food safety, turns into an assisted medical aid in dying or assisted suicide bill that is on the governor's desk now, and he can enact it. And Right to Life, a organization that opposes abortion, they also oppose this legislation. They point to concerns that county coroners have raised about oversight and transparency when it comes to this issue, and they say that they're going to deliver petitions to the governor's desk. The governor has 30 days for when it was sent to him on November 25th to either sign or veto it. If he doesn't act, then it automatically becomes law. So we'll see exactly how this plays out. All right. It is Illinois in Focus Daily, each and every weekday morning, hoping to keep you informed and breaking things down so you can get on with your day here with the Center Square. All right. Go to thecentersquare.com, get the headlines in your inbox, and like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for Illinois in Focus Daily. case challenging the Department of Homeland Security's use of force and enforcing federal immigration law continues. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. You can wake up with us each and every weekday morning for Illinois in Focus, but you can also get the headlines at thecentersquare.com. So now in the appeals court on preliminary grounds, you've got the case challenging the Department of Homeland Security's use of force ongoing now. And you've got initially here last month, the district court in this case that was brought by a variety of different organizations, media organizations, the Chicago Headline Club. The district judge issued a 230-plus page opinion in putting a preliminary injunction against the Department of Homeland Security after plaintiffs alleged excessive use of force. And they provided evidence that federal agents repeatedly used indiscriminate and disproportionate force, like rubber bullets, pepper balls, flashbangs, tear gas, batons, etc. The judge went on to essentially hold that the plaintiffs had a likelihood of success in their challenge, and the challenges were brought on First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, and a variety of other claims. And the judge rejected the qualified immunity at the preliminary stage here. Also found that some harm had been done, chilling of free speech, religious and physical injuries, balance of equities, and the public interest strongly favor the plaintiffs, the judge said, and this is all preliminary grounds. Also goes on to talk about how they worked to discredit government evidence of protester violence, repeatedly noting defendants' own body cam footage and reports undermining their claims. So again, this is just some of what was in the 233-page opinion issued by the district judge last month. And in this opinion, a preliminary opinion, again, hopefully if you've been watching this channel enough, you understand the difference. I'm not a lawyer, I'm just a reporter, but you understand the difference between, orders based on the merits and orders based on preliminary actions. This is a preliminary action, so they essentially put a hold on the use of force by DHS with this order that was issued last month. And one of those things they do, they essentially detail different things that the feds have to do, protections for any agents that they need to, have an understanding of how they can move forward, and limits the dispersal of different types of agents, near total prohibition of all less lethal munitions. It also bans targeting the use of injury to non-threatening persons, bans head, neck, groin shots, skipping gas canisters, using flashbangs to strike people, and a variety of other different types of injunctions against the federal government here. But then you have the appeals court now having the case in front of them after the federal government brought forward the appeal of the preliminary order. So defendants seek a stay pending appeal, and plaintiffs oppose that. A stay is appropriate if the movant demonstrates a likelihood of success on the merits and has irreparable harm. Talks about some of the likelihood that the defendants see in seeking the stay of the preliminary injunction, and they break that down as well. So you've got that filing. You've got a follow-up with hundreds of pages of filings of the defendants providing all kinds of information and more about their response. But then the plaintiffs filing their appeal here, or their motion of what to do in the appeals court with this preliminary action. And they ultimately say the timeline for all of this playing out, the plaintiffs submitting good cause exists for an extension of their filing, especially in light of the 230-page decision, especially in light of the defense, the federal government, and their filings. So they are ultimately working to get that extension. And they did get an extension, and we'll see how this continues to play out, again, on preliminary grounds, and that is after you have the appeals court acting on this stay, on this preliminary injunction, and the the federal government rather has to appeal, file their motions and their filings in this case at the Seventh Circuit, and how the plaintiffs, the media groups are going to respond to this. All of it's going to come to a head very soon. We'll be on top of that as well. While you've also got the case challenging the state's migrant sanctuary status, that's pending in federal court, and the state's challenging Trump's use of the National Guard, that's still pending in federal court. So these are three major issues concerning enforcement of federal immigration law that are still playing out even over the holiday weekend. You have attorneys for both sides filing all kinds of motions and filings, and you're surely going to see amicus briefs and all of the different headlines that are coming out of this. But it is all on preliminary grounds right now, working its way through the federal courts, and hearings are scheduled for later on this month to tackle this issue about the use of force in enforcing federal immigration law, as protesters have had clashes with federal agents, protesters having clashes with Illinois State Police, and the ongoing conflicts on the streets and what that does to public safety, let alone the safety of those federal officers enforcing federal immigration law. Keeping an eye on that for you. Go to thecentersquare.com for the latest, and we'll see if we can be in those courtrooms when those hearings are going on, and you'll stay updated with Illinois in Focus each and every weekday morning. I'm Greg Bishop, editor of The Center Square, Illinois, so be sure to tune in and tell your friends about it as well. All right, it's right here with The Center Square. Plaintiffs welcome House Committee request for Chicago Teachers Union audits. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. You can be with us each and every weekday morning here for the latest, where you can go to thecentersquare.com and get headlines in your inbox. It's real simple. Just sign up for the newsletter, and every morning you'll get national headlines and you'll get state headlines. One of the state headlines you'll see is Plaintiffs Welcome House Committee Request for Chicago Teachers Union Audits. The Center Square's Jim Talamonte reporting on this story, and let's just delve right into it in the time that we have here together. While Congressional Committee awaits financial audits for the Chicago Teachers Union, the Liberty Justice Center moving forward with its lawsuit seeking the documents. Now, the Liberty Justice Center filed suit in Circuit Court of Cook County on behalf of 4 CTU members on October 8th of 2024, so over a year ago, after they say that the union failed to produce audits for 4 years. Now, that move came after the Liberty Justice Center previously sent a demand letter to the union on behalf of several CTU members, offering the opportunity to comply and avoid the lawsuit. Now, last month, a U.S. House committee requested that the union submit audits and financial documents no later than Monday, December 8th. So that deadline's coming up just around the corner. Now, in a letter to the CTU president, Stacey Davis Gates, the committee, that U.S. House committee, asked the union to produce the reports from 2019 to 2024. The letter said the committee's concerned that CTU has undertaken a half-decade-long concerted effort to deny its members the complete audit information to which they are entitled under the union's bylaws. The Chicago Teachers Union responded the next day with a statement on the union's website, and in Jim's story you can link to that, and they say that the House Committee on Education and Workforce is investigating our union based 100% off of Illinois Policy Institute blog posts and the false allegation made in the lawsuit filed by a disgruntled member, Phil Weiss. partnering with the Liberty Justice Center. Now, CTU added that the request is not about transparency, which it said the union believes in. They say, quote, it's a political witch hunt to take down the power of the labor movement and check the collective power behind our black woman president. CTU's official letter to the House committee expressed two initial concerns. First, they say, quote, the allegations in your letter appear to closely mirror allegations made in the civil lawsuit recently filed. Second, the union says, we express our strong opposition to the press release issued in connection with your letter. The press release, as well as the letter itself, made serious allegations and declare conclusions about CTU's conduct before the union has had any opportunity to respond or the committee has reviewed a single document. Now, senior counsel for the Liberty Justice Center, Angel Valencia, said that the House committee's action is welcome, but they're going to proceed. They're going to proceed further with their case against the union because, it's going to be legally binding if they get a win here.
We believe that the CTU has an obligation to provide its members with these audits as per the union's own constitution.
Now, you've got the congressional request here and how that's going to impact the case. Valencia said that the union provided full independent audits before 2020. And we haven't seen financial audits since then.
The CTU did attempt to tell the court in our case that they had complied with the audits by providing summaries, self-drafted, and really self-serving summaries that were clearly not full audits.
So the CTU has until Monday to respond to the U.S. House Committee. What happens if they don't? Not sure. Maybe there could be a subpoena issued. We'll see how that turns out. But something else you can stay up to date with on @thecentersquare.com. So be sure to get the newsletter and wake up with us for the podcast, for the video cast, and more. It's right here with Illinois in Focus Daily and The Center Square. All right, that's all I got for you on this, Tuesday? We got a full work week. Oh, boy. Governor J.B. Pritzker's got a news conference later. He's going to be signing some legislation about vaccine access. Be interesting to see what kind of off-topic questions come up. Our reporter Jim Talamonte will be in Chicago at that news conference, so we'll bring you some of the highlights. We'll also keep an eye on what President Donald Trump has to say. He's got a cabinet meeting scheduled later on this morning as well. And he's been pretty fiery against Illinois and Governor J.B. Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson. So could we hear some more fireworks coming out of the White House directed towards Illinois? We shall see. Also, later on this week, we're going to talk with Congresswoman Mary Miller. So put that on the schedule, and plenty more to tackle here with Illinois in Focus as we looked at, one bill in particular that's on the governor's desk, enhancing migrant sanctuary policies. We have to look at the energy legislation that's pending on the governor's desk, and also the various other bills of the 20 plus that he has on his desk ready to enact from fall veto session. All right, so stay with us. It is Illinois in Focus Daily each and every weekday morning. Get the podcast where you get podcasts. Search for Illinois in Focus. You'll find it, but the best place to find us is thecentersquare.com.